Yo, what is going on, guys? In today's video, we're going to be breaking down All Father Odin, his new abilities in MCOC. I'm so excited that this dude is finally coming, man. The king of Asgard himself. He's been in the game for quite a while, you know, as the All Father Odin's Vaults to buy for like units and stuff, but he's finally coming in the game. We're going to talk about his abilities, his synergies. He's kind of has like an apocalypse type thing where he helps out other champions, but it's actually not even limited to the cosmic class. He can place his pre-fights in any champion aside from Odin himself can actually benefit from them, which is really cool. So we're gonna get into all that good stuff today. Let's get started. So mechanics. So Odin taps into the Odin Force to gain a variety of powerful buffs, improving his other abilities for each of his unique buffs. Odin also takes advantage of bulkier opponents by scaling his damage with his opponent's max health to strengthen himself. Odin can enter the Odin Sleep between fights to receive bonus buffs. To strengthen his allies, he can grant Asgardian relics to his allies. So let's jump into it. Strengths, Giant Slayer. So Odin's primary damage source is direct damage that scales with his opponent's max health. This gives him much easier time against tanky opponents with large health stats. Buff variety. Odin has access to many unique buffs for him and his allies, which can last for the entire fight. This makes him great for paths where unique buffs are key. Weaknesses, Nullify and Stagger, because he relies so much on those buffs. And then another unique weakness here is consecutive fights. So Odin performs best when he can alternate fights with his allies in order to gain the effects of the Odin Sleep. If he's used in consecutive fights, he will become much weaker after the first fight. Kind of, again, a similar the only other champion that I can even think of that benefits from other champions winning fights is Apocalypse, because he gains regen when he enters slumber when you do fights with other champions on your team. So Odin, he goes into his Odin Sleep. So with the Odin Sleep is at the start of Odin's first fight as an attacker and every fight as a defender, gain Odin Sleep effects. When Odin's teammates win a fight at the start of Odin's next fight, gain Odin Sleep's effects. Odin Sleep grants the following effects: Fury buff, increasing attack rating by 2,586, which is a pretty good amount of Fury of attack rating, maxed of 2 stacks, and then an armor up buff, increasing armor rating by 3,150. That's also a pretty good armor up buff. That's gonna be pretty solid. Also gonna allow him to fight champions like Havoc with that armor up buff, which is always a good thing. And so the Odin Force, when either Odin or his opponent are knocked down, gain an Odin Force charge. With 2 Odin Force charges, the next attack with an Odin Force effect will consume all Odin Force charges and trigger a bonus effect. So Odin's heavy attack. On hit, gain an energized buff, increasing combat power rate by 10% for 7 seconds. This is a max of 1 stack. But with the Odin Force, on hit, gain an energized buff for each of Odin's unique buffs, increasing combat power rate by 5% for 7 seconds, a max of 5 stacks. So if you can get the Odin Force going and have a bunch of unique buffs, which Odin can easily stack, you're going to be able to get a bunch of these energizes and start to get some specials off pretty quickly. And his special 2 sounds like it's the way to deal some pretty big damage. So this sounds interesting. I'm really excited to learn Odin's loop and really play him. And so always active. While in striking distance, pause the duration of all of Odin's personal buffs. That sounds really big, because this dude can get so many buffs. Okay, let's keep going. So now we're going to jump into his special attack. So special 1, Spear of Legends. On activation, gain a True Strike buff, ignoring armor, resistances, auto block, and evade effects for 7 seconds. And if you have the Odin Force, on activation, gain a Bulwark buff, increasing block proficiency by 700 for 7 seconds, max 1 stack. Developer note here, Odin has access to 2 unique buffs from his special attack 1, crucial to ramping up Odin during a fight. And when I first read this, I was like, 7 seconds? That's so lame. But then I realized, as long as you're in striking distance, those are paused. Those buffs are paused. There's also ways to elongate those buffs as well. So sounds pretty great. Now let's talk about the special 2. This is where it sounds like you want to get this is where you get the fat damage from. So on activation, pause the duration of all buffs on Odin until the special attack ends. The reason why I think that's in there is because I have no idea Odin's animations yet, but I'm assuming the special 2 creates distance between you and your opponent enough that your buffs wouldn't be paused. So if that's the case, with special 2, it just pauses the buffs anyways, even if you're not in striking distance, so that's really nice. All your buffs won't just fall off when you use the special. And the last hit deals a burst of direct damage for each of Odin's unique buffs, each dealing 2.75% of the opponent's max health up to 11,600. And then if you have the Odin Force on activation, refresh the duration of all personal buffs on Odin. Just refresh them all. So that's awesome. So this sounds really crazy. So when I first read that, I was like 2.75% of the opponent's max health. I'm like, oh. But then I read, oh, there's damage cap. Oh, okay. But I think it should be 11,000 damage for each buff on Odin. Each unique buff. So as long as it's like a different type of buff. And it doesn't say Odin's specific buffs from his abilities. So, like, imagine buff cornucopia in incursions. Just if you have, like, 20 different buffs, you're going to deal 20 times 11,000. Like, that... This sounds like it could be... That'd be 200,000. This could be pretty nutty. And there's a way to just get so many buffs with Odin himself. Sounds pretty cool. So developer note here, the last hit in Odin Special 2 has a damage cap. This scales with base attack rating, meaning that he can increase this damage cap by leveling up. That's cool. And now let's talk about the Special 3. So it's called Judgment. So gain a copy of all personal buffs Odin has gained at any time during the fight. Gain an extend buff, increasing the duration of all buffs by 25% for 15 seconds, max 1 stack. Developer note, for increased damage in longer fights, Odin can use his Special 3 to gain copies of his Fury and armor buffs granted by Odin Sleep, but for other buffs, notice that Odin has max stacks that prevent him from stacking bonus buffs. So this could just get all your buffs, and then you get the Energize, and then build a Special 2 with all those buffs, and they're going to be elongated. If you have the Extend buff, and then drop a Special 2, and just get some fat damage. Remember, with those Energize buffs as well, you can get the Special 2s probably pretty quickly. So sounds pretty good. Now let's talk about how he's kind of like Apocalypse with the pre-fights and crossfight abilities. So Odin can place crossfight abilities on the next fight from the pre-fight screen, and the next teammate, excluding Odin, that enters the fight gains the crossfight ability, lasting the entire quest. So notice how it says the next teammate, and the only exclusion from this is Odin himself. It's not class-based, it's not just Cosmic Champions. Any champion in the entire game can benefit from these effects. It's pretty cool. So let's talk about what these effects are. So I might butcher some of these names. This first one here is Thrudstock. Each fight gain an indefinite aptitude buff, increasing the potency of Fury, Armor Up, and Precision buffs by 13%. The first champion that comes to mind that could benefit from this would be Cosmic Ghost Rider, because you just start with the aptitude buff that would trigger a judgment on your opponent, and then you never have to even worry about triggering your heavy attack to get the aptitude, and this would be a permanent one. So I'm thinking Cosmic Ghost Rider could be benefit from that, but again, any champion in the entire game can get it. So any champion that gets Fury buffs could really benefit from that. Any champion in the game that can get Fury buffs. This next one, Drapnir. I feel like I said that right. Drapnir. Each fight gained an indefinite protection buff, preventing the loss of more than 18% of max health from a single source. This buff is removed when struck by a Special 3 attack and does not mitigate the damage. So when I was first reading that, I'm like, dude, this sounds insane. But then I read the other part, I'm like, oh, okay. Well then, yeah, that was the main use I was thinking of for it. But still could be useful. And then the last one is Stormbreaker. Each fight gain an indefinite shock resist buff, increasing shock resistance by 80%. So you can make any champion in the game 80% shock resistance. And the cool thing about that is it doesn't say shock debuff resistant. It's just shock resistance. So this can make any champion decently viable for EMP modification with the passive shocks, which is very annoying. That's huge. You can grant 80% immunity to any champion in the entire game, and if it is a debuff with willpower, you should be netting a positive heal from it with 80% resistance. So this sounds pretty crazy. And for example, Angela, newly buffed Angela, the way she works with her signature ability is for each buff on her, she reduces the duration of debuffs that get applied or something to that effect. So you could get 3 buffs on Angela here just from Odin. Like, there's so many possibilities with all this. If you guys think of anything cool, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, let me know what you guys are thinking for who you want to apply these to, but they sound super sick. And we got a developer note here. So Odin can grant his allies 3 crossfight abilities that last for the entire quest. each with a specific buff. Some fellow Cosmic champions can benefit from these buffs more than the average champion, like Angela. Be careful not to accidentally use Odin on a fight that you have used an Odin's Vault on. He will waste the cross-fight ability, and not the $100 unit pack. That's what this thing's actually called, All Father Odin's Vault of pre-fight abilities. So yeah, that's how he's like Apocalypse style, that paired with the whole Odin sleep in between fights to gain benefits. And then we have the signature ability, which I think this is a pretty lackluster signature ability, which is a good thing and a bad thing because, well, he doesn't need to be awakened, in my opinion. But, you know, it could have been a cooler and stronger ability. So, Protector of the Nine Realms, when either Odin or his opponent are knocked down, if the opponent has any of the following buffs, Odin gains a corresponding buff lasting 7 seconds, max 1 stack each. So, Fury buff, increasing attack rating by 646. Armor up buff, increasing armor rating by about 900. A physical resist buff, energy resist buff, and a critical resist buff. And a developer note here, Odin gains access to 3 more unique buffs when he's awakened, scaling with his other abilities. These can also be paused while Odin is in striking distance. That's cool, but the 3 other unique buffs are physical resistance, a physical resistance buff, and an energy resist buff, and a critical resistance buff, which are super rare. I'm having trouble like thinking of champions that even have those. Like Hela has a physical resistance buff off the top of my head, but those are extremely rare. And I don't know. I really don't think Odin will need to be awakened. I haven't played him yet, so I can't say that concretely for sure. But just by reading this, it doesn't seem like it's really needed to playing Odin, and it's definitely not needed for the pre-fight abilities. Now, let's talk about some synergies, because I had really high hopes when I heard Odin was coming to the game that would help his children, like Thor, Loki, Angela, technically Hela. So let's get into it. So his first synergy here is Battle of Realms. It's a unique synergy with Mephisto, so only Odin and Mephisto can benefit from this synergy. So for Odin, for each living teammate, gain plus 5% attack rating. So if you have a full team, you can get some decent attack rating going. And then Mephisto, for each knocked out teammate, gain 5% attack rating. It's kind of weird how they're like opposites. So yeah, that's a interesting synergy. Definitely nothing too crazy, I'd say. Could be pretty good for Odin, actually. And then we have Odin's sons and Odin's daughters. Unique synergy with Thor, Loki, Hela, and Angela. So Thor and Hela, plus 5% buff duration for each fight the team has won. And then Loki and Angela, plus 5% buff potency for each fight the team has won. That sounds kind of cool. Again, I think Angela and Odin can interact like really well together. So in a quest, in like a long quest, if you've done a bunch of fights, for each fight you've won, plus 5% buff potency. So that's just going to make Angela's Furies more potent, her regen more potent, all her buffs. Like, this could be pretty insane. Odin and Angela, man, post buff, I see some really, really strong potential. That's a pretty cool buff synergy for her. For everyone, I guess Loki could be kind of cool too. But the Thor and Hela one, it's not screaming out to me useful. And I was really hoping Thor would get a whole lot more. Honestly, at this point, I'm just hoping for a new Thor. And then we have Warmonger with Odin and Hela. So Odin plus 10% attack rating when fighting the final node of a quest. That could be useful if Odin's a good counter for the final fight in the quest, I suppose. Or you can place Guidance on it too, get even more attack rating going. And then Hela, while charging her heavy attack, Hela gains twice as many Fury buffs. So that's cool for Hela. You can get 3 Fury buffs on her heavy, I think. I think that's the max. So you could get 6 now. But my big problem with Hela is the whole charging. I think they're called spirits. I'd rather her like start with more spirits, maybe. I don't know. I'm really not a Hela player. Maybe some Hela players are hella excited about that. I don't know. But not gonna make me break out my Hela personally. And then we have a really interesting one here, Oath Sworn with Heimdall. So it's a unique synergy. So for Odin, once per fight, Heimdall will intercede on Odin's behalf, dash back, hold block for 1.5 seconds to gain a perfect block buff, increasing perfect block chance by 100% for 10 seconds. If this can be paused while you're close to the opponent, that's a really insane synergy, man. If it can't be paused, then it only lasts 10 seconds. Kind of cool, but And then Heimdall. So Heimdall's Indefinite Fury, Armor Up, Precision, and Aptitude buffs gain from charging a heavy attack gain plus 15% potency. Again, that's not going to make me break out and rank 3 my Heimdall. I don't even know if I have a 6-star, but it's not going to make me want to rank him up. He's still pretty underwhelming with that. And then we have a Friends with Thor Ragnarok, Hulk Ragnarok, and Thor Jane Foster. All champions gain 130 armor rating. That's pretty lame synergy. And then enemies with Red Skull and Thanos, just a crit rate synergy. So yeah, a little underwhelmed on the synergies. I think I'm most excited about the Angela one, and if the Perfect Block buff can be paused, that one sounds pretty nutty. And then we have a couple of recommended masteries here with just dexterity. I mean, you should always be running dexterity, but there's a cool interaction here. So if Odin dodges an attack just before performing his special 2 attack, he can pause the duration of the dexterity's precision buff, increasing the burst damage on the last hit of this attack. So that's cool. You know, a strategy is to just actually dex before you throw a special to just get the special off, for one, but 2, if it's like a one-hit special, like Captain America Infinity War, like one big hit, increases the chance to crit on that attack. So Odin can do that. His L2 has multiple hits, I'm assuming, but the dexterity buff will be active for all of them. So that's actually really cool. And then other recommended masteries are Perfect Block and Block Proficiency, because you have to be close to your opponents within striking distance to pause your buffs, so you're going to take some block damage. But you should always be running maxed Block Proficiency in Masteries, and I think 4 to 4 in Perfect Block gives you 4%. I think it's 1% per, so it's, I usually don't run max Perfect Block, but yeah, you can if you want. So yeah, guys, that's Odin. I'm really, really excited for him. Him and of himself sounds pretty cool. Kind of annoying with the whole Odin sleep thing that you have to alternate fights though. But when it works, it sounds like he could be pretty crazy. If it's really worth it, then great. But Cosmic Champions are really hit or miss, so it's hard to tell just from these abilities. I'm getting a pretty solid vibe, but don't know until I actually play them. But I am really excited about the Crossfight ability and the fact that it's not only limited to Cosmic Champions. So yeah, again, let me know what you guys think about Odin, and if you have any ideas for these pre-fight crossfight abilities, any specific champion in mind you want to use them on. But yeah, that's gonna do it. Drop a like if you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you guys are super excited for Odin. Are these abilities underwhelming to you? Are they about what you expected? Were you hoping for more? I'm very eager to read your guys' comments. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed, would appreciate dropping a like. It really helps the channel out. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out.